Is everyone able to hear me? Don't want that to happen again. Oh, goodness. Pray for me, y'all. Thank you so much, Jeff. A very blessed Shabbos to you and happy Passover. But to say again what I was saying before, because apparently the adversary doesn't want me speaking at all. A very blessed Shabbos and a very blessed Passover to everyone. Tonight's the first night of Passover, and how serendipitous is it that we are starting our uh, reading of the book of Exodus on Passover. And I was thinking about reading the portion of Torah that talks about the Passover, like reading all the way through from chapters 1 to wherever that happens to be, but it's all the way in chapter 12. So I'm going to read the Torah portion, and then I will touch on the part that speaks of the Passover. So I won't read all the way through to that point, but I will read the portion that's read on Passover, because repetition is the mother of learning, or however it goes. And we have Halsey this morning. A very blessed morning to you, Halsey. A very blessed Shabbos and a happy Passover to you. Even if you don't happen to celebrate Passover, regardless, a very happy Passover to you. And if you stick around on the show, we're going to start the book of Exodus, which pertains to the Passover. How coincidental is that? And as you guys may hear, I have some soft music playing in the background. I was going to test that to see if that was okay, like not too distracting, or if it was nice. You guys are going to laugh. I have the soundtrack right now playing from Super Mario Galaxy. I found the music in that video game to be so calming. But if you guys are able to hear it, let me know. And if it's too much and just too distracting from the reading, please let me know too. Peach tea. All right. So without further ado, let's get started. And now, just to give you a brief overview of Exodus, this is the book that's called in the original Hebrew language, and these are the names. That's the original name of the Torah scroll, whereas us in the English, Greek, and Latin translation would say Exodus because it pertains to their exiting from Egypt into the Promised Land. But in the original language, all of the scrolls were named very differently, and the Hebrew names, which are phrases, have a special meaning to this, to each and every scroll. And again, the name of this one is, and these are the names, pertaining to the names of the children of Israel, whom God calls to be his chosen people. And in this particular chapter, we're going to, or not chapter, but rather this particular book, there is a lot covered. Just to name a few events that happen in this particular book, we have the birth of Moses, we have the Exodus, of course, we have the crossing of the Red Sea, we have the laws given at Mount Sinai, we have the worshiping of the golden calf, we have the bronze serpent that kills all those who looked at it. We also have the journey through the wilderness for 40 years, all the way to when they entered the promised land. But as we know, they had a chance to enter the promised land, but since they rejected it, fearing the people of the land more than the more than trusting the promises of God, they were forced then to wander for 40 years, waiting for a second attempt to enter in the promised land, which they will in the book of Joshua. And how, again, it's a type of Christ, because at the time Jesus came, that was supposed to be the time that the Messianic kingdom came into being. But because they rejected it, it's now been put off for going on about 2,000 years now. If anything, barely audible. Okay, thank you so much, Halsey. So, yeah, there's a lot to cover in this book, and it's arguably one of the most important books for the Jewish people and for the Abrahamic faith. So, without further ado, let's get started. And these are the names of the sons of Israel coming to Egypt with Jacob their father. They came each man with his household: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. All the souls, offspring of the thigh of Jacob, had become 75 souls. As for Joseph, he was in Egypt. Then Joseph died, and all of his brothers, and all of that generation. And the sons of Israel were very fruitful, and they were swarming and numerous, and very staunch. So the land was filled up with them. So remember, this is fulfilling part of prophecy back in Genesis. God told Abraham that his descendants would be subjected to slavery and oppression for 400 years before they were given the promise. And God made that happen by having Joseph sent to Egypt through the sin of his brothers, saving all of Egypt and building a name for himself there, and then drawing in Jacob so that everyone willingly moved into Egypt. And if you read some of the commentaries, it says that that in particular was very, very important, because if they went, the Egyptians, and forcefully brought all of the Hebrews into slavery, then they would be under the complete subjection. But since they came willingly, because Jacob was so eager to see Joseph again, he willingly went into the land of bondage. They now have an even more just reason for being free. Then the new king rose over Egypt, who knew nothing about Joseph. So the new king, one who didn't deal with Joseph before, has come on the scene, and he has no special feelings towards Joseph and has quickly forgotten all of the good Joseph, and by extension, his people have done for them. He said to his people, Pharaoh, "Behold, the people of the sons of Israel are more numerous and staunch than we. Do grant attention. Let us show ourselves wise as to them, lest they increase and it come to be, if war should befall us, then they are added, even they, to those hating us, that they fight against us and ascend from the land." So the king of Egypt is very, very in the flesh, as we can see, starting off very, very much in the flesh. He thinks because they are more numerous that they're dangerous, because if they were to suddenly not have feelings towards the Egyptians, the Israelites, then they will surely overpower them, the Egyptians. So he has this sort of, not psychosis, but this very, very paranoid idea placed into him. We all know who placed it into him. This is God and the beginning stages of hardening Pharaoh's heart, so that God is able to display his wondrous power and have his name spread throughout the entire world. So we're seeing the beginning stepping stones of that happening right here. Hence, they placed over them chiefs of tributary service, that they might humiliate them with their burdens. So they were building as provisions cities for Pharaoh, Tom, and Ramses. Yet just as they were humiliating them, so they multiplied, and so they breached forth. Hence, they were irritated in view of the sons of Israel. So all of this hard work and labor is not stopping the Israel population from growing. So the Egyptians made the sons of Israel serve with vigor, and they embittered them with their lives, embittered their lives with hard service and clay and in bricks, and with all the service of the fulfilled all their service which they served among them with vigor. Then the king of Egypt Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of the first one was Sapphira and the second Puah, and said, in your midwifery for the Hebrew women, when you see them on the bracing stones, basically a birthing table, if it is a son, then you will put him to death. And if it is a daughter, then she will live. And right here, there's also commentary. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but Jordan Peterson had a roundtable discussion with a bunch of biblical theologians, and of course, I take everything they say with a grain of salt. And one of the speakers there was Dennis Prager, and he brought up the very, very poignant point that there was a reason why only the sons were targeted as opposed to the daughters. Because when you demasculate a population, the population tends to unravel and fall by the wayside, and the population of that particular group as a whole is much more likely to follow the oppressive group. So, Pharaoh is trying to further subjugate and also further decrease the population by taking away the heads or the future heads of the households. And it's also noted by Dennis Prager that the Hebrew midwives aren't necessarily Hebrews themselves. I forget what he said that shows that they weren't necessarily Hebrew in lineage, or the um, idea that they were Hebrew is sort of thrown up in the air to show that regardless of whether or not these midwives were Hebrew or Egyptian, it's not their remembrance of them and their praise is not to be attached to who they were associated with, but their own actions. To put it another way, they aren't in here in praise for what they did because they were Hebrews following the God of Israel. Rather, these midwives, it was quite possible that they were Egyptian. They're even more honored. There's even more of a reason to have them honored in the Torah because they weren't of Hebrew lineage and still had the faith in God to understand that what was happening was wrong, and they rebelled against Pharaoh. And Dennis Prager says that this is also probably the case because Jews as a whole in the Torah are not fondly talked about often. It's usually in the Torah, the Gentiles, the righteous Gentiles, are usually the ones that are very, very exalted in the Torah, as we'll see later on in Joshua, Rahab the harlot. So not only is she a Gentile, she is a lying harlot who has this high honor, not only in the book of uh, Joshua, but is also listed among the Hall of Fame of Faith in the book of Hebrews, a Gentile woman who, by all considerations of the law, is considered to be one of the worst sinners out there, is given a special place in uh, the Hall of Honor of Faith in. And the same thing applies here because righteous Gentiles are specifically targeted and focused on in the Torah. Dennis said that that was most likely a good indicator as to them not actually being part of the Hebrew people. They were just the midwives of the Hebrews. But back to the story. Now the midwives said to Pharaoh, the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are livelier. Ere the midwives come to them, they have already borne. Hence Elohim dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and were very staunch. So it came to be, because the midwives feared the one Elohim, that he provided households for them. So God was very, very gracious and very, very um, good towards these midwives for lying to Pharaoh. And that was a lie. They're basically making up excuses as to why they could not kill these Hebrew children. Then Pharaoh instructed all of his people, saying, Every son born to the Hebrews into the waterway shall you fling him, yet every daughter you shall keep alive. And how ironic, too, that the preferred execution of the Hebrew children, all the male Hebrew children, is how the savior of the Hebrews comes to be. Where Pharaoh executes everyone via water, the savior, the type of Christ, Moses, is drawn out of the water. And that's exactly what Moses means, from the water or drawn from the water. A man of the house of Levi went and took his wife as a daughter of Levi. The woman became pregnant and bore a son, Moses, and she saw him that he was a goodly child. And in other translations, it's he was a handsome child. So Moses stole his mama's heart right from the get go. So she secluded him for 3 months. Then she could no longer seclude him. Then she took for him an ark of papyrus, dabbed it with asphalt and pitch, and placed the boy in it. Then she placed it in the weeds on the shore of the waterway. And his sister stationed herself afar to know what might be done to him. And it's interesting note here is that the word ark, a very specific word for ark, is used in two places here and talking about the ark in the story of Noah. Now, I don't know too terribly much on the details of it, but the word for ark, a specific word, is used for a particular reason. It's used only two times here and in Noah. I'll have to do further study on that. Then Pharaoh's daughter descended to bathe at the waterway while her maidens were walking on the side of the waterway. When she saw the ark in the midst of the weeds, she sent her maidservants and took it. She opened it and saw him, the boy, and behold, the lad was lamenting. She spared him and said, "This is one of the boys of the Hebrews." Then his sister said to the daughter of Pharaoh, "Shall I go and call for you a woman, wet nurse from the Hebrews, that she may nurse the boy for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." So the damsel went and called the boy's mother. Then Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Have this boy go and nurse him for me, and I shall give you your hire." So the woman took the boy and nursed him. When the boy was grown up, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She called his name Moses and said, "Because I have removed him from the water." And I also love the hand of God working here, where Moses' mother, whose name is Yoheved, which I think is a beautiful name, when Yoheved put him in the water, I'm pretty sure she was trying to be at peace with the idea that she probably would never see Moses again, or there would come a time where she would never see Moses again. And by the grace of God, not only was he taken into a house where he would absolutely be safe, but she got to spend his entire childhood with him, nursing him as a nursemaid. But she was actually his mother. So I think that was very, very beautiful and very, very um, gracious of God to bring things the way that they were unfolded. It came to be in those days when Moses had grown up that he went forth to his brothers and saw their burdens, and also saw an Egyptian man smiting a Hebrew man, one of his brothers. He faced this way and that way and saw that there was no one else. Then he smote the Egyptian and buried him in the sea. So Moses just murdered a man for hitting one of his brethren. Then, or when he went forth on the second day, behold, two men, Hebrews, were striving with each other. So there's an altercation between two Hebrew men. So he went and said to the wicked one, "Why are you smiting your associate?" Then he said, "Who appointed you as foreman and judge over us? Are you meaning to kill me just as you have killed the Egyptian?" Then Moses became fearful and said, "Surely the matter is known." When Pharaoh heard of this matter, he sought to kill Moses. So Moses ran away from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, where he sat by the well. And as you will see a pattern here, Moses is almost always associated with water. He came from the water. He is appointed shepherd by his father-in-law because he meets his father-in-law's daughters by a well. He's the one who's told to lift his staff to the Red Sea and the Red Sea parts. And it's also his downfall because the sin that he committed that prevented Moses himself from going into the promised land was striking a rock to bring forth water for the Hebrews and claiming that as it being solely of him. We're not giving God proper credit. So Moses is very much the water boy of the Bible. Now the priests of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came, drew out water, and filled the gutters to let their father's flock drink. But the shepherds came and drove them out. Yet Moses rose, saved them, and let their flocks drink. And it's also interesting to note here that we see Moses also being a mediator and settling matters between Gentiles, Hebrews, and between Hebrew and Gentiles. God's preparing him to be a leader in these cases. He came to Reuel, their father. He said, "For what reason did you hesitate to or hasten to come in today?" They said, "An Egyptian man who rescued us from the hand of the shepherds, and moreover he drew out water for us and let the flocks drink." When he said to his daughters, "And where is he? Why is that you have forsaken the man? Call him that he may eat bread." Hence Moses was despoiled to dwell with the men, or disposed to dwell with the man. He gave Zipporah, his daughter, to Moses for a wife. When she bore a son, he called his name Gershom, for he said, "A sojourner have I become in a foreign land." In the course of these many days, it came to be that the king of Egypt died. So the king of Egypt that sought out Moses' life is now deceased, and a new king is coming in. So I would like to recant what I said before. This isn't the same Pharaoh that's going to have his heart hardened. Although God, I would say, did harden the heart of the first Pharaoh to treat the Hebrews as he did. But this new Pharaoh coming up is the one who famously has his heart hardened. Yet the sons of Israel sighed under the servitude and cried out, and their imploration ascended to the one, Elohim, out of the servitude. Elohim heard their moaning, and Elohim was mindful of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Elohim saw the sons of Israel and was realized by them. As for Moses, he had become a shepherd of the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. Once he was leading the flock beneath the flock behind the wilderness, and came to the mount of the one Elohim to Horeb. Then the messenger of Yahweh appeared to him in a blaze of fire from the midst of a thorn bush. So he stared, and behold, the thorn bush was consuming with fire, yet the thorn bush it would not be devoured. And it's interesting to point out here that this is one of the first of many that will see God associated with fire. That's another reverse that modern day Christianity does. They make of the devil and God of like the clouds and the air when really it's the opposite. Satan is the principality of the jurisdiction of the air or the jurisdiction of the air, and God is almost always associated with fire. In the burning bush, in the same book, we're going to see him as a pillar of fire. Um, we see we saw one of his judgments being fire from the sky, Sodom and Gomorrah, and we'll see it in the tale of Elijah versus the prophets of Baal. God's also called a refiner's fire and all-consuming fire. So I thought that that was also very, very eye-opening when I first discovered it. Because whenever you think of fire in the religious sense, you get the visions of the false doctrine of eternal conscious suffering, when really it's the opposite. Whenever fire is mentioned here, it brings the presence of God to mind. And it's also worth noting that the burning bush has been adopted as a symbol of the Israeli people as a whole. Because no matter what trials and tribulations come their way, such as fire is associated with, they will never be destroyed. So Israel sees themselves as the burning bush, constantly aflame, but never devoured. And I thought that that was beautiful symbology there. Hence Moses said, "Let me withdraw, I pray, and discern the great sight. For what reason the thorn bush is not being consumed?" When Yahweh saw that he withdrew to discern, Elohim called to him from the midst of the thorn bush and said, "Moses, Moses." So he heard and answered, "Behold," or so he answered, "Behold." Then he said, "Do not come hither. Drop off your sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing, this is a ground of holiness." And I also think that this is super sweet because when we hear and see that in our fleshly form, we think, oh, God doesn't want any disgrace or any uncleanliness coming here, which, even though it is true, it's showing that God desires connectedness with humanity. So instead of having humanity separated from the ground, which is deemed holy by God, he's having humanity come as close as possible to it, the bare feet touching the holiest of grounds at this particular moment. And he said, "I am the Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob." And now Moses concealed his face, for he feared to look towards the one Elohim. And Yahweh said, "I see the humiliation of my people who are in Egypt, and I hear their crying because of the presence of their taskmasters, for I know their pains." And remember, God is the one who sent them into bondage to prepare them to be the chosen people, because they had to be humbled, first of all. And God also wanted them to associate themselves and feel sympathy for those who are oppressed, because they will be the kings and the priests, the future kings and priests of the world. So they're going to have a vast amount of empathy and sympathy for other people. And that vast amount of empathy and sympathy and righteous judgment will be from the remembrance of what their ancestors went through. "I have descended to rescue them from the hand of Egypt and to bring them from the land to a land good and wide, to a land gushing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanite and the Hittite and the Amorite and the Perizzite and the Girgashite and the Hivite and the Jebusite. And now behold, of the sons of Israel, it has come to me, and indeed I have seen the oppression with which Egypt has oppressed them. Now do go. I am sending you to Pharaoh. Bring forth my people, the sons of Israel, from Egypt." Now we're getting into one of my favorite parts, the absolute obliteration of human free will, and you'll see how this pertains to it. "Yet Moses said to the one Elohim, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the sons of Israel from Egypt? Then he said, I shall come to be with you, and this will be a sign for you that I have sent you. When you bring the people forth from Egypt, you shall serve the one Elohim on this mountain." First rejection of God. "Now Moses said to the one Elohim, Behold, when I am coming to the sons of Israel, and I say to them, The Elohim of your fathers, he has sent me to you, then they will say to me, What about his name? What shall I tell him?" This is another form of rejection right here, basically saying, you're trying to get it out of it. The Elohim spoke to Moses, "I shall come to be just as I am coming to be." And he said, "Thus shall you say to the sons of Israel, I shall come to be, or I am that I am. Yud He Vav He. He has sent me to you." And Elohim said further to Moses, "Thus shall you say to the sons of Israel, Yahweh, the Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he has sent me to you. This is the name, this is my name for the eon, and the remembrance of me for generation after generation. Go, and you will gather the elders of the sons of Israel, and say to them, Yahweh, the Elohim of your fathers, he appeared to me, the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I have noticed you, and what is being done to you in Egypt. Hence I am saying that I shall bring you up from the humiliation of Egypt to the land of the Canaanite, the Hittite, and the Amorite, the Perizzite, the Girishite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite, to a land gushing with milk and honey. Then they will hearken to your voice, and you will enter, you and the elders of Israel, to the king of Egypt, and you will say to him, Yahweh, the Elohim of the Hebrews, he has met with us. So now, we pray, let us go a way of 3 days into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to Yahweh our Elohim. Yet I know that the king of Egypt shall not give you leave to go, yea, not even by a steadfast hand. Hence I will put forth my hand and smite Egypt with all my marvels which I shall do within it, and afterwards he shall dismiss you. And I will give the people grace in the eyes of the Egyptians. So it's God giving the grace, not the Egyptians. So the Egyptians, if God had not done that, probably would not treat them very nicely with their hardened hearts. So God's saying that the grace you're going to receive for them is me. I will give this people grace in the eyes of the Egyptians. God's going to be doing it. It will come to be that when you are going, you shall not go empty-handed, for each woman will ask of her neighbor, and of her who sojourns in her house, for articles of silver and articles of gold and remnants. And you will place them on your sons and your daughters, and you will despoil the Egyptians. Yet Moses answered and said, Behold, they shall not believe me, nor shall they hearken to my voice. For they shall say, Yahweh has not appeared to you. Third rejection. Now Yahweh said to him, What is this in your hand? And he answered, A rod. Then he said, Fling it to the earth. So he flung it to the earth, and it became a serpent, and Moses fled from its presence. Then Yahweh said to Moses, Put forth your hand and take hold of its tail. So he put forth his hand and held fast to it, and it became a rod in his palm, that they may believe that Yahweh, the Elohim of your fathers, appeared to you, the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now Yahweh said to him further, Now bring your hands into your bosom. So he brought his hand unto his bosom and brought it forth from his bosom, and behold, his hand was leprous as snow. Then he said, Restore your hand to your bosom. So he restored his hand to his bosom and brought forth from his bosom, and behold, it was restored like other flesh. Hence it will come to be, should they not believe, nor hearken to your voice for the first sign, that they may believe the voice of the latter sign. Yet it will come to be, even should they not believe these two signs, nor hearken to your voice. Then you will take some of the water from the waterway and pour it out onto the dry ground. And the waters which you are taking from the waterway will come to be, yea, will come to be blood on the dry ground. So God's giving Moses three signs to give to the Hebrew people to show that Moses was in fact sent by Yahweh. Then Moses said to Yahweh, O Lord, I am no man of words, either hitherto. Indeed, for since you have spoke to your servant, for I am heavy of mouth and heavy of tongue. Apparently, theologians say that Moses had a lisp and a stutter, which I can relate to Moses on that. So he's saying, I'm not a good speaker. Fourth rejection. Yahweh said to him, Who made the mouth for a man, or who is making one mute or deaf, or having unclosed eyes or blind? Is it not I, Yahweh? So now we're having God basically outright saying he's the one who closes the ears and closes the eyes, both physically and spiritually here. Another death blow to human free will. And now go. I shall come to be with your mouth, and I will direct you what you shall speak. Yet he said, O Lord, send, I pray, by another whom you should send. Fifth rejection from Moses. Then the anger of Yahweh grew hot against Moses. And he said, Is there not Aaron the Levite your brother? I know that he can speak, yea, speak. And moreover, behold, he is coming forth to meet you, and he will see you and rejoice in his heart. You will speak to him and place the words in his mouth. And I shall come to be with your mouth and with his mouth, and I will direct both of you as to what you should do. So he will speak for you to the people. It will come to be that he shall become a mouth for you, and you shall become a Elohim for him. Interesting verbiage. And his rod you shall not take in your hand, and this rod you shall take in your hand, with which you shall do the signs. So basically, God just said to Moses, "You will be a God to Aaron." This is a lowercase g God, and this is not uncommon um, for someone to be called an Elohim. The Hebrew people are called gods or placers, but they are lowercase g gods, whereas God is the capital G God, and God will also share that title with Christ while he's king on earth until the time where Jesus gives back the kingdom to his Father and God will be all in all. But this is a great example to show how the titles of God can be used to describe other people. Whereas God is the capital E Elohim, Moses is the lowercase c Elohim, as he will be the placer for Aaron and the director for Aaron, telling him exactly what to do. When Moses went and returned to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said to him, "Let me go, I pray, and return to my brothers who are in Egypt, and let me see whether they are still alive." And Jethro said to Moses, "Go in peace." And Yahweh said to Moses and Midian, "Go, return to Egypt. All the men who are seeking your soul have died." So Moses took his wife and his sons and let them ride on the donkey and returned to the land of Egypt. Moses also took the rod of the one Elohim in his hand. And Yahweh said to Moses, "When you go to return to Egypt, see all the miracles which I place in your hands, that you do them before Pharaoh. Yet I shall make his heart steadfast. He will harden his heart." This is God outright saying that he will harden his heart. And I was reading different translations last night to prepare for this. I can't tell you how triggered I was seeing translations say God predicted. Just as God predicted, his heart was hardened. And so many people attributing the hard-heartedness of Pharaoh to Pharaoh, when God outright says, and you'll see multiple times, starting here, I think he says it a total of 6 or 7 times, that he is the one who hardens his heart, and then they completely turn on their head and go, "Look, Pharaoh hardened his heart, just as God predicted." No, God did not predict it. God dictated it and made it so. But that's a me problem to deal with. Yet I said, "I shall make his heart steadfast, and he shall not dismiss your people." So you will say to Pharaoh, "Thus says Yahweh, my son, my firstborn is Israel. And I am saying to you, dismiss my son, that he may serve me. Yet should you refuse to dismiss him, behold, he will be killing your son, your firstborn." And this is one of the first of the touchy subjects of the Bible that believers are usually confronted with. Like one of the go-to objections for the righteousness of God is the fact that he killed all of the firstborn of Egypt. And in the relative human sense, if someone were to go out and do that, yes, it would be a horrific sin. Yet we are told in, I think it's the same book, Exodus. Exodus chapter 13, verse 2, that every single firstborn among human beings and among the animals solely belong to God. And this is what the 11th plague was about. This was against Pharaoh himself, since he was considered a god himself among the Egyptians. So, amongst there are many other gods, if you were king of Egypt, you were also considered a deity in and of yourself. And the firstborn killing was a direct attack and a direct dethroning of Pharaoh, just as every single other plague was a dethroning of other gods of Egypt, lowercase g gods. This was against Pharaoh himself, since he was considered a god himself. This displayed that even the most powerful god in Egypt, which was thought to be the Pharaoh himself, could not save his son from death. Every firstborn belongs to God, which is clearly stated in Exodus chapter 13, verse 2, and Numbers 3, verse 13. So, how does this make it righteous? Well, God just outright said why it was righteous. We, as firstborns, belong directly to him. So he's able to do with the firstborns whatever he pleases. And I realize in the minor sense of understanding the Bible, I don't want to say immature because that implies stupidity, but minors are not stupid. They just don't know yet. In the minor view, it is very harsh to have all firstborns, regardless of age, because whenever we think of the firstborn sons being killed, we think of young children, but this was more than young children. These were teenagers, adults, people in old age. If you were the firstborn of your family, you were very much on the table for this particular plague. But we also have to remember that this is a God that absolutely was torn to pieces when he had to send the flood to cleanse the earth. This is a God that suffers with his creation. This is a God that does not uh, say, do as I do, or do as I say, not as I do. When we suffer, God suffers along with us. So he's not like a who sits in the throne room just watching as everyone else suffers, saying, oh, don't worry, it'll be worth it in the end. No, every single pain that we feel, God feels, because love suffers with the object that it loves, the suffering of the object that it loves. And this is also the God who is going to bring every single one of these firstborns back to life, who guaranteed it through the death, the literal death, entombment, and resurrection of his Son and our Lord Christ Jesus. So this is a temporary and necessary evil brought on upon the firstborn, and it will be made up to them. And rest assured, God takes no pleasure in the death of anyone, and he takes no pleasure in the death of the wicked. And you can find that specifically stated in the book of Ezekiel. So to bring it back to what we were saying, every single firstborn belongs automatically to God. So when he brought this plague down, the death of the firstborn of all humans in Egypt and all the animals, this is God just reclaiming what is his. And I always found that very interesting. Not the plague, so to speak, but the fact that every single firstborn is considered to be God's directly, or has a even more super um, exceeding possession by God. I'm a firstborn of three girls, so I'm automatically on the in the list of absolutely being God's. I don't necessarily want to say property, but of God's possession. It came to be on the way in the lodging that a messenger of Yahweh encountered him, Moses, and sought to put him to death. Or wait, yeah, okay. I thought I skipped a passage. I apologize. It came to be on the way in the lodging that a messenger of Yahweh encountered him and sought to put him to death. So Zipporah took a curt knife and cut off the foreskin of her son and touched it to his feet and says, because one of blood affinity are you to me. And he slacked off from him. Then it was that she said blood affinity, referring to circumcisions. Now, I remember studying this particular passage, but I forget what the significance of this was. I do think, relatively speaking, this is God getting Moses to adhere to the covenant, so that way he and his sons will be included in the covenant of God. So this was God pushing his hand to get him to circumcise himself and his sons. But there's a particular reason why it played out this way, and I apologize for not remembering it. I'll have to do more in-depth research into why it transpired this way. Yahweh said to Aaron, "Go to the wilderness to meet Moses." So he went and encountered him on the mountain of Elohim and kissed him. Now Moses told Aaron all the words of Yahweh with which he had sent him, and all the signs with which he had instructed him. Now Moses and Aaron went and gathered all the elders of the sons of Israel. Aaron spoke all the words which Yahweh spoke to Moses, and he did the signs before their eyes of the people. Hence the people believed him. When they heard that Yahweh noticed the sons of Israel and that he sees their humiliation, then they bowed their heads and bowed themselves down. Afterwards, Moses and Aaron entered and said to Pharaoh, thus says Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, dismiss my people that they may celebrate me in the wilderness. Yet Pharaoh said, who is this Yahweh to whose voice I should hearken to dismiss Israel? I do not know Yahweh, and moreover, Israel I shall not dismiss. Then they said, the Elohim of the Hebrews has met with us. Let us go, we pray, a way of 3 days into the wilderness, and let us sacrifice to Yahweh our Elohim, lest he come upon us with the plague or with the sword. Yet the king of Egypt said to him, why, Moses and Aaron, are you causing the people to renounce their tasks? Go to your burdens. And Pharaoh said, behold, they are now more numerous than the people of the land, and you caused them to cease from their burdens. Hence Pharaoh instructed on that day, the taskmasters among the people and their superintendents, saying, "You shall not continue to give crushed straw to the people to mold the bricks as hitherto. They themselves shall go, and they will rake together crushing straw for themselves. You shall place on them the regular number of bricks which they are making heretofore, and shall not diminish from it, for they are slackers. Therefore they are crying, saying, Let us go, let us sacrifice for Elohim. The service shall be heavy on them, and they shall carry it out, and must not heed false words." So basically, Pharaoh not only rejected their request to go, but he also made their job harder for them because the straw was supposed to solidify and hold the mud that they made the bricks out of. So now he's saying you got to make the same bricks now, but with less cohesion, and that's going to be next to impossible for them to complete, giving the slave masters all the more reason to treat them more harshly. This Pharaoh's a piece of work. So the taskmasters of the people and their superintendents went forth and spoke to the people, saying, Thus says Pharaoh, I am not giving crushed straw to you. As for you, go take for yourself crushed straw from wherever you find, because there shall be nothing subtracting from your service. Hence the people scattered in all the land of Egypt to rake together stubble for crushed straw. Then the taskmasters were rushing, saying, Finish your tasks, a day's tally in its day, just as when there was crushed straw given to you. Then the superintendents of the sons of Israel were being smitten, whom Pharaoh's taskmasters have placed over them, saying, For what reason did you not finish your statutory number of bricks, as you did hitherto, both unto yesterday and today? They're gaslighting them now, these people. Then the superintendents of the sons of Israel entered and cried to Pharaoh, saying, Why are you doing thus to your servants? Crushed straw is not being given to your servants, and the bricks they are saying to us, Make them. And behold, your servants are being smitten, and your people are at fault. Yet he said, You are slackers, ye slackers. Therefore you are saying, Let us go. Let us sacrifice to Yahweh. Yet now go. Serve, but crushed straw shall not be given to you, though the regular number of bricks shall you provide. Hence the superintendents of the sons of Israel saw themselves in an evil plight, having to say, You shall not subtract from your bricks a day's tally in its day. So they came upon Moses and Aaron stationed to meet them when they came forth from Pharaoh. They said to them, May Yahweh look upon you, and may he judge you, since you have caused our scent to stink in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants, giving a sword into their hands to kill us. So they're getting angry with Moses now, basically saying, Look what you did. Look what you did. You basically just signed our execution. And they're complaining now because they're having to endure even more arduous tasks because Pharaoh's now pissed off. Moses returned to Yahweh and said, O Yahweh, why have you done evil to this people? And why is this that you have sent me? For since I entered to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people. Yet you have not rescued, nay, rescued your people. Then Yahweh said to Moses, Now you shall see what I shall do to Pharaoh. For under a steadfast hand he shall dismiss them, and under a steadfast hand he shall drive them out of his land. And that concludes the Torah portion of this parashot. And we have Justin, very blessed Shabbos to you, brother. All right, and now we have the Haftorah portion, which is Isaiah 27, 6 through 28, 13, and 29, 22 through 23. Oops. Let's get that all set up. taking a few minutes to load up. I apologize. Share screen. Right. So the Haftorah portion, Isaiah 27:6 through 28:13 and 29:22 and 23. In the coming days, Jacob shall take root, Israel shall blossom and bud, and they will fill the face of the inhabitants with produce. Has he smitten them like the smiting of those smiting him, or has he suffered killing like the killing of those killing him? In moderation, you are contending with her when sending her away. He removes her away with his staff, his stiff wind, in the day of the east wind. Therefore, in this shall a propitiatory shelter be made for the depravity of Jacob. And this is my propitiatory shelter to take away his sin, which he makes all the altar stones like scattered chalk stones. The Asherah poles and incense stand shall not rise. For the fortress city will be solitary. The homestead will be left alone and forsaken like a wilderness. Here a calf shall graze, and there recline, and it will resume its leafy boughs. When its harvest branches dry up, they shall be broken. Women shall come lighting fires with them, for this is not a people of understanding. Therefore its maker shall not show it compassion, and its former shall not be gracious to it. It will come to be in that day, Yahweh shall beat gleanings from the trail of the stream into the wadi of Egypt, and you yourselves shall be gleaned one by one, sons of Israel. It will also come to be in that day a great trumpet shall be blown, and those perishing in the land of Assyria will come, and the outcasts in the land of Egypt, and they will worship Yahweh in the holy mount of Jerusalem. Woe to the proud crown of the drunkards of Ephraim, and to the decaying blossom of his stately beauty, which lies at the head of the fertile ravine, of whose battered it by wine. Behold, Yahweh. Oh, I'm not supposed to read this part, just number 13. I apologize, everyone. Hence, the word Yahweh comes to them. Instruction is added to instruction, instruction to instruction, principle to principle, principle to principle, a bit here, a bit there, and they shall walk and stumble back and be broken and trapped and seized. Now we jump down to 29, 22, and 23. For thus says Yahweh to the house of Jacob, he who distinguished Abraham, not now shall Jacob be ashamed, and not now shall Israel's face grow pale. For when he sees his children, the work of my hands in his midst, they shall hallow my name, and they shall hallow the Holy One of Jacob. And before Ephraim of Israel they shall be awestruck. And that concludes the Torah portion, speaking of the coming of the Messiah. And this relates to the Torah portion that we read, in that the people of Israel are getting prepared to enter into the promised land, much like the Israelites of today are awaiting the Messiah also to enter into their promised land and be priestly kings for the eon. And we go to the New Testament portion, which is Acts chapter 7, 17 through 35. 17. There we go. Now, as the time of the promise which God avouced to Abraham drew near, the people grow and multiply in Egypt until a different king rose over Egypt, who had not been acquainted with Joseph. This one dealing astutely with our race, ill treats the fathers, causing their babes to be exposed, that they should not live. In which ere Moses was born, and was handsome even to God, so was reared 3 months in the home of his father. Now, at his being exposed, Pharaoh's daughter lifted him up and reared him for herself for a son. And Moses was trained in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, yet was powerful in his words of works. Now, as his 40-year time was completed, it came on his heart to visit his brethren, the sons of Israel. And perceived someone being injured, he scours them and does the avenging of him to his hair despite the Egyptian. Now he inferred that his brethren understood that God, through his hand, is giving salvation to them. They do not understand. Besides, on the ensuing day, he was seen by them as they were fighting, and he intercedes with them for peace. So when, brethren, are you? Why is it that you are injuring one? Yet he, who is injuring his associate, came away saying, who constitutes you a chief and a justice over us? You do not want to dispatch me in the manner, do you? Uh, you do not want to dispatch me in the manner you dispatched the Egyptian yesterday? Now Moses at his word and became a sojourner in the land of Midian, where he begets two sons. And at the completion of the 40 years, a messenger was seen by him in the wilderness of Mount Sinai, in the flame of a thorn bush fire. Now Moses, perceiving it, marvels at the vision. Yet at his approach to consider it, the voice of the Lord came, I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Now Moses, coming to be in a tremor, dared not consider it. Now the Lord said to him, loose the sandals from your feet, for the place on which you stand is holy land. And perceiving, I perceived the ill treatment of my people who are in Egypt, and their groaning I hear, and I descended to extricate them. And now come hither, that I should be dispatching you into Egypt. This Moses, whom they disowned, saying, who constitutes you as a chief and a justice over us? This one has God commissioned to be as well as a justice with the hand of the messenger who was seen by him in the thorn bush. And now we will jump to 1 Corinthians 14, 18 through 25. This 16, 15, 13, 18 through 20. That's it. I thank God that I speak in a language more than all of you. But in the ecclesia, do I want to speak 5 words with my mind that I should be instructing others also, or 10,000 words in the language? Brethren, do not become little children in disposition, but in evil be minors, yet in disposition become mature. In the law it is written that in different languages and by different lips shall I speak to this people. And neither thus will they be hearkening to me. The Lord is saying, so the languages are for a sign, not for believers, but to the unbelievers. Yet prophecy is not for unbelievers, but for believers. If then the whole ecclesia should be coming together in the same place and should be speaking languages, but should plain persons or unbelievers be entering, they will not be declaring that you are mad. Now, if all should be prophesying, yet some unbeliever or plain person may be entering, he is being exposed by all. He is being examined by all. The hidden things of his heart are becoming apparent, and thus, falling on his face, he will be worshiping God, declaring that God really is among you. And we'll see this happen with the Egyptians. The Egyptians that go with the Hebrews, not necessarily them speaking languages, but seeing God for who he is and deciding to follow him. Just to give my voice pause, and I want to see what portion of the Torah is read for the Passover. I want to do that. Exodus 12:21 through 51. I can do that. All right. So I'm reading the Passover portion of Torah today because tonight, first night of Passover. So I wanted to make sure we touched on that. again, for mentioned from beforehand, I find it so neat that we hit Exodus at the time we that Passover falls this year. So I thought that was really neat. Your screen. We're going to go to here. So it's 21 through 50. Moses called for all the elders of Israel and said to them, "Draw out and take for yourselves from the flock of your families and slay the Passover. Then you will take a bunch of hyssop and you will dip it in the blood which is in the basin, and you will touch the lint and the two jams with the blood which is in the basin. As for you, not one of you shall go forth from the portal of his house until morning, when Yahweh passed through to strike the Egyptians, and he sees the blood on the lintel and the two door jambs. Then Yahweh will pass over the portal, and he will not allow the ruiner to enter into your house to strike." This is also a type of body of Christ happening right here, and also a type of tribulation. Now you will observe this word as a statute for you and for your sons unto the eons. It will come to be when you are entering to the land with which Yahweh is giving you, just as he spoke, that you will observe his service. And it will come to be when your sons are saying to you, "What is this service to you?" Then you will say, "It is the sacrifice of Passover to Yahweh, who passed over the houses of the sons of Israel into Egypt when he struck the Egyptians. Households he rescued." So the people bowed their heads and bowed themselves down. Then the sons of Israel went and did just so. Just as Yahweh had instructed Moses and Aaron, thus they did. It came to be at midnight that Yahweh, he smote every firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh sitting on the throne unto the firstborn of the captive who was in the house of the cistern, and every firstborn of the beast. When Pharaoh rose by night, he and all his courtiers and all the Egyptians, then there came to be a great cry in the land of Egypt, for there was no house where there was no one dead. Hence Pharaoh called Moses and for Aaron by night and said, "Rise, go forth from the midst of my people, you indeed of Israel. Go, serve your Yahweh as you spoke. Moreover, your flocks, even your herds, take just as you have spoken, and go. Therefore, however, you will bless me." Also the Egyptians were steadfast over the people to hasten to dismiss them from the land. For they said, "All of us are dying." And the people carried their dough ere it was leavened, their kneading those bundled the remnants on their backs. Then the sons of Israel, they did according to the word of Moses, and requested from the Egyptians articles of silver, articles of gold, and remnants. And Yahweh, he gave the people grace in the eyes of the Egyptians when they asked of them, thus they despoiled the Egyptians. The sons of Israel journeyed from Ramses towards Sukkoth, about 600,000 men on foot, those in mastery, besides the little ones. Moreover, a mixed multitude ascended with them, and flocks, herds, and cattle exceedingly heavy. They baked the dough which they brought forth from Egypt, unleavened embers of heat, for it was not leavened, for they were driven out of Egypt, and they could not dally, and moreover, they did not make provision for themselves. Now the dwelling of the sons of Israel and their fathers, who dwelt in the land of Canaan and in the land of Egypt, was 430 years. And it came to be at the end of 430 years, and it came to be on this very day, that all the host of Yahweh went forth from the land of Egypt. It was a night of observances for Yahweh to bring them forth from the land of Egypt. The same night is to Yahweh observances for all the sons of Israel throughout their generations. Yahweh said to Moses and to Aaron, "This is the statute of the Passover. Any son of a foreigner, he shall not eat of it. Yet any son's servant acquired with silver, when you have circumcised him, then he may eat of it. A guest or a hireling, he may not eat of it. In one house shall it be eaten. You shall not bring forth any of the flesh from the house to the outside, and the bone of it you shall not break. The whole congregation of the sons of Israel, they shall do it. In the case of the sojourner is sojourning with you, and he makes a Passover to Yahweh, every male of his is to be circumcised. And then he may draw near to make it, and he will become as a native of the land. Yet everyone uncircumcised, he shall not eat of it. One law shall there be for both the native and for the sojourner sojourning in your midst. And all the sons of Israel did so, just as Yahweh had instructed Moses and Aaron. Thus they did. And thus concludes the Torah portion of this week. Hey, Taylor, I just got here. Had to take the pooch to the vet. Your audio is kind of rough today. Is it? Aw, I'm sad to hear that. I hope it's good enough for everyone to hear, though. We covered the opening of Exodus today, Lisa, and tonight's the first night of Passover, so I just got finished reading the Passover portion. So if it was a little rough today, everyone, I apologize. I'm not sure why it was a little bit rough, but I sincerely hope everyone enjoyed the show and got something out of it today, especially since it's Passover. Oh, I just leaned back for that one portion, Lisa. I was leaning forward the entire time, so God willing, the message was well received for most of the Torah reading, because I'm on a couch and the table is a glass table that's pushed all the way back, so I can't bring it forward. So I have to lean forward, and my back was getting tired of leaning. But I'm sad to hear that you had to take your dog to the vet. I hope he's doing okay. A very happy Passover to you, by the way, Lisa and Justin. Well, with that being said, $1 million dogs. I know the feeling, Lisa. My sweet boy who passed away not too long ago, back in December, a golden retriever, 5 years old. His name was Oakley. He had hemangiosarcoma, and before that, he suffered from uh, aerophagia. So we know all about the $1 million dog. I pray that your sweet boy or girl feels better really, really soon. And thank you so much for the happy Passover. Only 5? Yeah, he was only 5 years old. He had health problems ever since he was young. He had a full exploratory surgery at 1 and 2, and would swallow so much air that his belly would get so distended that if you tapped the side, it sounded like you were beating a drum. But for the longest time, we were able to get him to a point where he was living comfortably. We would just walk him and he would toot and burp off the air. And then out of nowhere, he ended up getting hemangiosarcoma, which is cancer of the blood. And he passed. We had to say goodbye to him back in December. So, God willing, when we're snatched away, one of my super exceeding requests will be to have him alongside me while I reign in the heavens, if possible. On old Chihuahua. One of my very dear friends had 5 Chihuahuas. None of them were particularly nice to me. They weren't mean, but whenever I would go to them, they would always scamper away. So I never really got a not a good feeling for Chihuahuas, but I've never bonded with them before, and I'm particularly a cat person by nature. I by no means hate dogs, but I've bonded with cats more over the course of my life, and it's um, particularly from my great grandmother, who I was fortunate enough to know. My great grandmother on my mom's side, she loved cats, and she would feed the strays behind her trailer and called them her little sweet potatoes. So my love of cats comes from her. Mine loves people. Well, you're exceedingly blessed. I've yet to meet a Chihuahua that is super friendly. So you are super blessed with your puppies loving people. I love cats too. Yeah. Right now we have one dog. We have Oakley's sister, not by litter, but we have another golden named Daisy, and she's a little pistol, but very loving. And then my sister found a stray cat about 2 months ago, and we've been keeping her in the house and loving on her and taking care of her. She named her Kiwi, and Kiwi's not very friendly. She'll let you pet her, but she has the stereotypical cat attitude where the cats that we've had beforehand were very, very loving and snuggly. So I was disappointed to find out that Kiwi, who I affectionately call Cheese, is not a cuddler. But with that being said, it looks like it's a slow day today. I hope everyone's out having a fun time. And sorry, I got a little notification. And I hope everyone has a blessed Shabbos. And if you happen to celebrate Passover, have a blessed and happy Passover. I will see you guys all next week. Love, grace, and peace. Bye.